30 Odd Minutes is sponsored in part by Digital Dowsing. Who are you powered by?
For the next 30 minutes, we will explore the unexplained. From mysteries beyond our galaxy to ghostly phenomena in our own backyard, we will dive into our psychic abilities and explore everything from conspiracies to the just plain weird. Welcome to 30 Odd Minutes. If the truth is out there, we will find it. But only by sheer accident.
Hey! Welcome to 30 Odd Minutes. Great to have you here aboard the mothership. We are hovering live over the Serpent Mound in Adams County, Ohio, right there behind us, kind of below us. Because tonight we're talking about star mounds. Interesting mounds. These things are all over the world, but especially in the Ohio Valley. I'm excited. This is an interesting topic.
Very interesting.
Have you witnessed any mounds for yourself in the past? Burial mounds or otherwise?
Oh, yeah. I spent a night on Silbury Hill in England.
Nice.
A number of barrows and mounds out in that area. The Wiltshire Plains is filled with them.
Yep.
Silbury Hill. That was, of course, a Peter Gabriel song.
Salisbury Hill. No.
Totally different.
But no, I've seen the mounds myself around Avebury and Wiltshire. Yeah, they're pretty amazing.
Right.
They make you wonder.
I was emailing with our guest earlier tonight. I was in Moundsville, West Virginia, but these were burial mounds.
Right.
Different from what we're going to be talking about tonight. But there are burial mounds and there are star mounds. We're going to learn all about this. I'm very excited. So, any hellos?
Oh, yes. We have a hello to Urbana Public Television in Illinois. We want to let you guys know that the mothership will be at the Chicago Ghost Conference in October. Attendance is mandatory.
Yes, it is.
We will find you.
Yes. Thank you. Hello, Urbana. Good to have Illinois with us tonight. And good to have you guys with us tonight. And again, really cool subject. Everything else okay?
Yeah, everything's fine.
Ready to embark on this mission?
All set.
All right, let's get to this. All over the world, there are mounds laid out in intricate patterns along the ground. Many of these mounds are tombs that hold the remains of ancient peoples, but not all of them contain bodies. Some seem to be an astronomical reference that was intended to be seen from above. Hundreds of these mounds cover the greater Ohio Valley and beg many questions. Who built them? When? Why? Could they be a connection to extraterrestrial forces, spiritual forces? Tonight we'll explore some of these questions and see a few of these beautiful and ancient structures with our guest. He's the author of the book, Star Mounds, Legacy of a Native American Mystery. Please welcome, beaming to us live from Southern Ohio, Ross Hamilton.
All right.
All right. Welcome, Ross. How are you?
Thanks. Thanks, Jeff. I'm fine, and I'm glad to be here.
All right. Well, so let's start with the mound that's right behind us, the Serpent Mound in Adams County. I understand you spend almost every week there. Is that correct?
Yes, I work there on the weekends during the warm weather for the tourist season. And basically, I teach classes and give tours around the earthwork, which is about a quarter mile long.
Right.
And it's probably, if you stretched it out, it would be exactly 1,371 feet, I think, in 3 parts.
Okay.
So as you can see from the picture, it has at the extreme end to the west, it has like a small triangular feature. And then as you work your way toward the east, it has an oval feature. And then a head, which goes down through 7 loops or coils, and then terminates in a kind of spiral tail, like a Fibonacci seashell kind of design.
Okay, and so, I mean, this thing obviously begs a lot of questions. It's ancient. How old exactly is this?
Well, you can go about that dating process in a couple of ways. Mm-hmm. In the early 90s, a group of amateur archaeologists that were kind of supervised by some regular archaeologists dug a single trench in one of the coils that was supposed to be a trench that had been dug previously by Harvard in the 1880s. And they came up with 2 small pieces of carbon, actually 3, but the 2 that they kept dated to about 900 years ago. So they had this big brass plaque made up, and they had a press release that the mystery of the Serpent Mound was solved. It's the 4 ancient people, it's 900 years old, case dismissed. But we didn't agree with that because archaeoastronomy has a different method where you match up an earthwork like Serpent Mound, which is entirely non-burial, there's no bodies in it, with a star pattern. If you're lucky, you can sort of show how that star pattern was located in a specific part of the sky in a certain era or period. In our case, we got really lucky because the Serpent Mound had the last pole star embedded in its astronomical overlay, dead center to its geography. So it appeared as though the serpent was moving around that point when we did the map, and I think that picture is shown as we go on. But
so yeah, we've got the number 5, Eric, the map of the serpent and sky comparison, where you've got this Serpent Mound, which is a central figure to lots of celestial figures, right? And this is representative of many mounds found throughout the Ohio Valley, correct?
Yeah, very, very much. And that little white dot you see there, that's where the serpent is. And the collection that we're talking about is in the darker green area. Now, we can date the serpent, to finish my sentence, to about 5,000 years ago, or, give or take a century, because of that embedded star pattern.
Right. Now, what's so interesting to me is that there seems to be a thought among archaeologists, especially in the United States, that Native American people were just hunters and gatherers and didn't mind the stars too much. I know there's a site in New England called America's Stonehenge, which seems to be about 4,000 years old, seems to be a very intricate and accurate celestial calendar that marks the solstices and things like that. And the first impulse is to say, well, it must be European, it must be anything but Native American. But why would the people who lived here for 10,000 years plus, ignore the stars, ignore the seasons?
Seasons, right?
That's how they learned how to plant.
Right.
They weren't ignorant.
So are we finding something similar? Are you seeing pushback from modern archaeology that says, well, this can't be Native American, or it can't be celestial anyway?
Yeah, the problem is that our science is very material, and there's very little imagination, intuition, or insight, spiritual insight being put into archaeology today. And as a result of that, they rely completely upon external evidence. And as you know, you can get so far using external evidence through your instrumentation and so forth. But unless you listen to what Native people have to say, you're going to come to a completely different conclusion. In other words, many of the earthworks in the Ohio Valley show signs of being aligned to the rising and setting points of the sun and the moon, and occasionally a star pattern. But the star mounds are a direct reflection of what's above, and so you don't see a horizon alignment with the star mounds. You see an embedding of the star pattern in a complementary way in the earthwork itself, sort of incorporating the celestial with the terrestrial in order to get this lovely alchemical homogenization of the twin aspects of nature.
Now, your book is full. Your book is full of these diagrams, full of photos, and I know you take a very esoteric approach and talking to the people that were here before us and the oral traditions and so on. What did the natives tell you that the meaning was behind some of these mounds, especially the Serpent Mound?
Well, that's interesting too. The native people, you can classify them into 3 groups. The traditionalists, who depend upon what they've heard from their elders. Then you can go to the people who read the literature that's put out there, which is basically done by white people.
Right.
And then you have a group that depends upon their own intuition and their own prophecies and so forth to establish a link to the past. And what's interesting about consulting with native people is that they all agree that they were far more spiritual at one time in their past. They had a degree of spirituality that kind of exceeds what they have today, what anyone seems to have today. And that their ancestors definitely were competent to create architectures that rival the Greeks and Egyptians in the scope of their planning. and that much of that has been lost. So they spend a lot of time making the effort to go within themselves, because most of their record has been destroyed, of course,
right,
to retrieve a lot of the information that would link them up with the past. And what we've done with star mounds is we've shown that by using 19th century maps that were made with fair accuracy, because many of these are lost now, many of the ones you're going to see are gone, and using modern astronomical maps, we've been able to show or reconstruct what their ancestors did. Now, when I say their ancestors, we're going back to a time before any recorded history, and before the time of much of their memory, because the white man separated them, killed them by disease, and pretty much changed them.
We have an audio cutting out on us here. You still there with us, Ross?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep,
Okay,
sorry.
here you are.
We
You're
can
back.
see you, but we lost audio for a second. No worries. So, just lost you for a second. Okay.
And lost him again.
Sound like a stars.
Yeah.
So what we've done in Star Mounds, and what I've done in Star Mounds, is show that these people created a community that had a central totem, the Serpent Mound,
Right.
which at one time was so active in processing the energies of Earth and atmosphere that it was able to literally change the electromagnetic spirit of the entire region through the transformation of the energies of the Earth with the energies of the sky into this new energy that we call vitality or chi or orgone, and that the surrounding earthworks, which represented the other parts of the night sky, each one of them goes for a particular constellation or constellatory group, would back up the serpent and spread that energy by doing similar processing of Earth and sky energy in their part of the Ohio Valley, making a very widespread community that exhibited the signs of a golden age technology and spirituality that has been lost.
Right. So what's interesting too, now you sent us a photo of one of the potential builders, Eric, if you could bring up the third image. This skeleton, discovered in the 1800s, 7 feet tall. Tell us about this.
Well, that skeleton is 7 feet tall from the knees to the top of the head. It probably, that gentleman probably stood 8 feet tall.
Sure.
Then again, we have another account that says this skeleton could be 6 feet from the knees to the top of the head, but that would make him 7.5 feet tall, probably.
Still very tall.
Now,
Yeah.
this skeleton was a good example of the Adena leadership. Most of the Adena were in the 5'8" range for the men, and the 5'2" range for the women. But they had a leadership class that was numbered in the hundreds of people at one time that were alive, who men and women, who stood something in excess of 7 feet. And we think that they were the direct ancestors of the original mound builders or the lodge builders of the Ohio Valley. And that they were lending a hand to nature, so to speak,
Right.
and going over these old foundations and reconstructing them in earth. Because apparently these lodge structures, which we think of as earthworks, were the creations of the Adena and Hopewell people between the time of about 400 BC and about 400 AD. All of these foundations were reconstructed in earth and stone. Prior to that time, we think that they were nothing but bare spots or stone that was left after the original lodges had been sort of removed by the original makers. So there was a period of time from about 5,000 years ago to about 3,000 years ago when these were in complete ruin. And the story that goes along with it is contained in Star Mounds. But essentially, we have a story that's very much like the stories you hear coming out of Egypt and Glastonbury and Greece, where once the gods walked and lived among the people in their celestial terrestrial habitat, and that at a certain signal, for some reason, all of these ancient paradises were curtailed. Their crystalline lamps were removed, and their resonating manitous were also silenced. And we began a downward evolution into what we are today. Now, the native tribes corroborate this. They say about 5,000 years ago, their Adam and Eve disappeared. The Cherokee are very, very strong at this point. That there was a period in Indian history as well as world history, which is about 5,500 years ago, when we seem to have degenerated. We've come down a notch from having the inner eye open and enjoying celestial trade and commerce. In other words, the ancients believed that we were regularly visited by people doing trade from other planets and other star systems, but that this whole idea of interspatial or interstellar communication ended abruptly, and the masters of spiritual science, who are mainly located in India, today tell us that yes, indeed, the seat of spiritual power moved to India about that time, 5,000 years ago, and that they were especially adamant about preserving the spiritual science. And so the systems of yoga and initiation pretty much were relegated to that subcontinent, while the rest of the world fell into utter darkness, intellectually and spiritually.
Right. Ross, we have to take a quick break for the news. Hold tight with us. We want to come back and we want to talk more about this extraterrestrial connection and also, where we are today in the preservation. We'll be right back after the news.
Another mystery has been discovered in the Bermuda Triangle. An oceanographer named Dr. Mae Verlang has located a number of enormous pyramids on the ocean floor that he says are made of glass. By using sonar and other imaging equipment, the doctor and his team were able to determine that these pyramids are made from a crystal-like substance and appear to be undamaged. Their size has also been measured to be 3 times larger than the pyramids of Cheops in Egypt. Dr. Verlang believes that these giant pyramids originally stood on dry land many centuries ago, but ended up 2,000 meters below the ocean due to some catastrophic world shift. Many people believe that the lost continent of Atlantis was located in this part of the world and that it too slipped beneath the waves because of some horrible earth-shifting disaster lost to recorded time. Back in 1968, a man named Ray Brown reported finding these ancient pyramids by accident while scuba diving on vacation. Brown was unable to explore the structures at length, but he did bring back a small crystal sphere with strange properties that has puzzled those who have examined it. Could these pyramids have been power stations from the lost civilization of Atlantis? Could they explain some of the mysterious disappearances in the Bermuda Triangle? The answer to these questions will have to wait until a closer study of the site can be made. I'm Andrew Lake, and oddly enough, that's the news.
Thank you, Andrew. The Atlantean connection, obviously pretty interesting. Talking about star mounds, the legacy of Native American mystery with Ross Hamilton. Guys, what are your thoughts? The meaning of these things. Obviously, peoples are gone, their traditions are gone. We lose it, and we have to assign meaning. We see stuff like that in New England. We see it all over the world. In Old England. Yeah. What are your thoughts on
South America, replete with it.
Right. What are your thoughts on the celestial meaning, that it's more than just a burial mound?
Well, they tie their whole lives to the stars. So you're born and you die in a particular rise and fall of a star or constellation. That's universal throughout the world. We all cultures do it, and they
Zodiac,
share it.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is they share a lot of the occupation of the same stars.
Right.
Sirius being one, and several others. But That's how they track time. That's how they knew when to plant. That's how they knew when, the game was coming or leaving.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, we talked about this a little earlier. Just the notion that if you are a hunter and gatherer people, you live and die by that kind of stuff.
Right.
If you don't hunt at the right time, if you don't
Fish
plant,
or-
leave, move, migrate, and so on at just the right time, you die, you perish. And much beyond that, though, I think what Ross is talking about is the spirituality that's been lost. Sadly, because a lot of this was oral traditions, and if it was written down, it's lost, unfortunately. But how do we get that sense of spirituality back, Ross? How do we get this idea, this harmony between Earth and stars and people and animals? How do we get that back in a world that's all on Twitter and Facebook and 24/7 news coverage that focuses on just the worst of the worst?
There's a couple of ways. First of all, you should seek initiation from some competent living master of spiritual science. They don't charge anything. They're mostly Indian at this point. But there is a massive influx of highly advanced souls coming to the Americas to start the new millennium of initiation here. The other way is to engage in the practice of land and sea reckoning. The ancients knew of a spiritual science whereby they connected to the earth and drew the magnetic essence out of the earth before it turned into heat. And they were able to bring it up into their pyramids and their spires and draw the energy down from the sky, which is more of a negative charge, and consummate the earth energy with the sky energy that way and create this stuff that they used to call mana, which made the whole earth a sort of astral paradise at one time. So right now we're experiencing a great deal of discomfort in the earth, and that really is the reason why human beings are so upset. That is because the earth is upset. And as we see the earthquakes increase and the volcanoes erupt more frequently, we realize that it's a buildup of pressure on the tectonic plates that is directly the result of not stewarding the earth and bringing the electromagnetic energy up before it turns into heat at the plate level. So there's this old mythology that stems from Greece and Atlantis before it that talks about Kronos slaying his father and removing the genitalia of his father, Uranus. And he started a new school that had 12 great houses in it. And similarly, Zeus stood up about 6,000 years ago, and he overthrew Kronos and started another new school that had 12 houses in it, the 12 Olympians. Each one of these were represented by a god or a goddess, but was really secretly a temple system that utilized the energies of the earth, brought them up by means of heavy weights and by building atop magnetic anomalies and so forth, and drawing the energy down from the sky, alleviating earthquakes and so forth over time, and at the same time lending the earth this new fresh energy by which they could create wonderful gardens and peaceful places on the earth where you could raise your kids and live a long life. Now, we have evidence for longevity from the Bible, but we also have it from Native American oral tradition that states unequivocally that even just 4,000 years ago, the people used to live to be 200, and before that, 400, 800 years old, when they had the ability to marry or to allow Father Sky and Mother Earth to make love. But we don't do that anymore. We've completely divorced ourselves crazily from from our Earth Mother's energy. And as a result of not pulling it out before it turns into heat, we have a state of emergency on our hands. And so many say that we've come to the end times and that something big is about to happen, something huge. And hopefully we're all going to be a part of the positive part of that big change, because we can't go on like this.
Right. Yeah, no,
maybe we should look at some pictures.
So Ross, I know you were on the show Ancient Aliens, which I often draws the conclusion that it is an alien. That seems to be the catchphrase at the end. But you've talked a lot about harmony with the planet, with the sky above, and 7 and 8 foot tall humans. Do you feel that there is an extraterrestrial connection with these star mounds, or are we just talking about a de-evolution of people who used to be bigger?
We're saying the same thing. Native people.
Okay.
Native people believe that the star ancestors are completely responsible for any degree of higher technology that was left to us. We have to understand, though, that we're the aliens. And that show, Ancient Aliens, is really just a kind of a wake-up call for people to begin to mull over the possibility that maybe we did have contact with other worlds at one time, but we've lost that contact because we've devolved to a point where we can't reach out to them anymore. They're on a level of understanding the principle that we initiates call the etheric principle. In India, it's called Akash. And when the Akash is not present in the atmosphere, then we're in a lower state of consciousness. And we tend to, think more like animals and act more like animals. But when the ether, the Akash, is fully restored to our atmosphere, then we behave more like gods, more like cosmopolitan citizens. In other words, we have our celestial sort of remerge with our terrestrial aspect. Right now, we're pretty much terrestrial creatures. We look out through the senses, and we don't really understand anything but what we can see through a telescope and microscope. As a result of microscope, we're getting into a lot of mischief, with all the genetic, the GMOs and so forth. That's big mischief. Right. And as a result of telescope, we're pretty much only seeing the part of the universe that's in our dimension. So although our science is seeing planets around many of the stars through Hubble now, to their astonishment, if they could see what the universe looked like with the etheric added to it, they would be dumbfounded, because every planet has human life, not human, but humanoid life. The anthropomorphic form is what the grand universe is shaped like, we're taught by the masters from India. And we are just one small planet with a few minor subraces of the great species of man and woman that inhabits all of the planets and the moons and all of the universes beyond which we have no reckoning.
Right.
So, we're on the verge of having the etheric restored again. And
Ross,
that's why we're really pleased to present Star Mounds, because it gives us an insight into what our community...
Warning. Local radar has picked up the mothership. 1 minute to release weather balloon decoys.
Ross, that is our warning. I am so sorry. We are right up against the end of the show. Star Mounds is the name of the book. We will, of course, have links to it on our website, Native American Mysteries. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, talking to us a little bit about these mysteries, about what they mean. They're there for you to visit, folks, out there in Ohio. Ross is there typically on Saturdays. You can get a tour from him yourself. Thank you again for joining us on the mothership. Thank you all for joining us as well. Until next time, everybody, from us to you, stay odd.